Eala entered Birmingham with the sting of Roland Garros still fresh on her skin. On May 26th, she walked onto a clay court at Stade Roland Garros and lost to her own doubles partner, Iva Jovic, 4-6, 2-6, in a first-round match that lasted barely over an hour. It was the kind of defeat that makes you question everything, not because Jovic played brilliantly, but because Eala played as though her feet could not decide whether they belonged on the surface. Her clay season had been uneven at best. A second-round exit in Madrid, a respectable third round at the Italian Open, and then Paris dismantled whatever remained. So she arrived in Birmingham with a 10-day gap between the worst loss of her spring and the first ball she struck on English grass. And what happened next was startling. She destroyed Priscilla Hahn 6-0, 6-2 in the opening round, dropping just 2 games against a player who had been competitive all week in practice. She dispatched Elena Kariva 6-2, 7-5 with a second-set comeback that demonstrated something psychological happening beneath the surface. She handled Maninkaya Sawenki 6-3, 6-2, a player she knows intimately from the Southeast Asian Games circuit, with a clinical authority that suggested not peak performance, but something deeper. Total command of her own narrative. She was not merely winning. She was imposing. Then came Rebecca Mazarova in the semifinals, and for the first time all week, Eala felt resistance. She took the first set 6-2 with her usual grass court tools deployed at full velocity. The flat backhand cross court, the take-it-early forehand that skids off the grass and rushes opponents into contact they never prepared for, the aggressive return positioning that dares servers to find the corners. But Mazarova, a qualifier who had knocked out defending champion Tatiana Maria earlier in the draw, figured something out in the second set. She slowed the ball down. She made Eala generate all her own pace. And when rain interrupted the match at a critical juncture, the pause could have gone either way. Eala was ahead in the final set when the clouds opened, but momentum on grass is uniquely fragile. It took her 2 hours and whatever spiritual discipline she had been cultivating all week to close it out 6-2, 4-6, 6-3. The Mazarova match matters because it revealed what this week has been for Eala. It has been a reclamation project dressed up as a tennis tournament. After Eastbourne last year, after the 4 championship points, after losing the Guadalajara 125 title match in October against Punna Udvardy before eventually winning it in the spring, she has been circling the idea of what it means to close. Not to compete. Not to dominate sets. Not to arrive in finals. But to actually finish the job when the trophy is being held at the edge of the court and everyone is watching. Now let us talk about the woman standing in her way, because Nikola Bartankova is not a routine obstacle and she did not reach this final by accident. At 6 feet tall with a right-handed game modeled on what scouts have described as a blend of Federer's elegance and Alcaraz's daring, Bartankova entered Birmingham having never struck a competitive ball on professional grass. Her entire career, which gained real traction only in the second half of 2025 after she returned from a 6-month anti-doping suspension that the ITIA ruled was caused by a contaminated supplement, has been built on hard courts and clay. She reached a WTA 500 semifinal in Guadalajara last September. She qualified and reached the 3rd round of the Australian Open in January, beating then world number 10 Belinda Bencic along the way. She reached the last 16 of the Italian Open as a lucky loser, upsetting 17th seed Madison Keys. But grass was terra incognita. And that is what makes her Birmingham run so confounding to the analytical mind. She lost the first set of her opening match to Harriet Dart, a British grass court specialist playing in front of a home crowd, and then came back to win 3-6, 6-3, 7-5. She survived Gabriela Knudsen in a tiebreak. She outlasted Mika Stodsavljevic in a third-set breaker at 7-6-4 after saving set points in the second. And then she beat Ashlyn Kruger, a well-credentialed American, 6-4, 7-6, 7, fighting off nerves at critical moments with a composure that belied her surface inexperience. What you notice watching Bartankova this week is that she has not adapted to grass. She has simply refused to be diminished by it. Her game is built on variety. The ability to shorten points when she wants to come forward behind approach shots, to use her height to generate serve angles that most women on tour cannot replicate. These are grass court tools, even though she did not know they were grass court tools until 5 days ago. Here is where the final becomes genuinely compelling from a tactical standpoint. Eala is a left-hander. She strikes the ball flat and early, takes time away from opponents, and positions herself inside the baseline on return games with an aggression that borders on recklessness. Her serve, historically the weakest component of her game, has been functional but unspectacular all week. She has been broken just 3 times across 4 singles matches before the Mazarova semifinal, which tells you that her service games have been clean enough. But they have been clean because her opponents have been reluctant to attack a lefty serve on grass, where the slice out wide to the ad court skids away from right-handers in ways they rarely see. Bartunkova is the tallest player Eala has faced this week. At 6 feet, she stands 3 inches taller and generates a steeper angle on serve that will test Eala's return positioning. More critically, Bartunkova's height means her first serve, when it lands, comes through the court at a trajectory that flat ball returners struggle with. Eala likes to stand close and take the ball early. Against a tall server who can hit down into the box, standing close becomes a liability rather than an advantage. The question is whether Bartunkova's first serve percentage will hold. In her semifinal against Kruger, she landed just 55% of first serves. But when she did get them in, she won 48 of those 57 points. That is a staggering conversion rate. If she replicates that accuracy against Eala, she will hold serve often enough to stay in the match. If she does not, Eala's return game will dismantle her. From Eala's perspective, the tactical equation is different. She needs to make Bartunkova move laterally. The Czech player's movement has been adequate this week, but not exceptional. She covers the court well for her height, but she does not possess the side-to-side speed that makes players like Eala difficult to hit through. Eala's cross-court backhand, struck flat and low, is her primary weapon on grass. When she drives it into the ad-court corner against a right-hander, it skids and stays low, forcing opponents to dig balls out below the knee. If she can get Bartunkova stretching wide to her backhand side repeatedly, the rally should open up. But here is the complication. These 2 women know each other. They partnered in doubles at this very tournament 4 days ago. They lost to Harriet Dart and Maya Lumsden in a match that went to a super tiebreak, 4-6, 6-2, 9-11. They sat beside each other on changeovers. They discussed tactics between points. They watched each other hit returns from a meter away. Whatever intelligence they gathered during that doubles match is now available as competitive data. Bartunkova knows how Eala moves to her right. Eala knows how Bartunkova responds under tiebreak pressure. Neither can unsee what she saw. And then there is the junior history. In July 2021, at an ITF Grade A event in Milan, a 15-year-old Eala defeated a 15-year-old Bartunkova 6-3, 6-3 in straight sets. That match exists in the record books as a footnote. But for 2 players who have tracked each other through development squads and junior rankings ever since, it carries weight. 5 years have passed. Both women are fundamentally different players now. But the knowledge that you have beaten someone before, or been beaten by someone before, sits in the subconscious whether you acknowledge it or not. The broader context of what this final means for Eala cannot be overstated. If she wins, it becomes her second WTA 125 title, following Guadalajara in April 2025. But more importantly, it becomes her first grass court title. It becomes the thing that proves Eastbourne was not a fluke. She reached a bigger final last year and lost. She enters a smaller final this year having processed that loss. The tournament level is WTA 125 rather than WTA 250, so the ranking points are modest. But titles are titles. They change the internal architecture of a competitor's self-image in ways that ranking points alone cannot accomplish. For Bartunkova, winning would represent one of the more remarkable stories of the 2026 season. A player banned for doping through no fault of her own, who lost 6 months of development during a critical phase of her career, who rebuilt herself through lower-level events across Europe, who qualified for her first Grand Slam and beat a top 10 player, and who then walked onto grass for the first time in her professional life and won a title within a single week. The narrative writes itself. But narratives do not win tennis matches. Execution does. And when you strip away the stories, the emotional arcs, the historical callbacks, what remains is a question of who can handle the pressure of a final between two 20-year-olds who have never won a grass court title, who have both been through versions of professional adversity that most players their age have not, and who both desperately want this for reasons that go beyond ranking calculations. Eala holds the advantage in almost every measurable category. She has more experience on the surface. She has played in and lost a bigger grass court final and survived the aftermath. She has dropped fewer sets this week. She has faced a more difficult path, particularly in the Mazarova semifinal, and demonstrated the ability to close under duress. Her game is more natural on grass. Her flat ball, her left-handed serve, her aggressive court positioning, and her willingness to approach the net when the ball sits up all suggest she is the better grass court player in this pairing by a meaningful margin. But Bartonkova has one quality that defies measurement. She does not seem to recognize when she is supposed to lose. Against Dart, down a set, she did not adjust. She simply kept playing her game and waited for Dart to blink. Against Stoj Savljevic, facing set points in the second, she served her way out of trouble as though the scoreboard was irrelevant. Against Kruger, in a second-set tiebreak where the American had mini-break advantages at multiple points, Bartonkova hit through the pressure with a forehand that treated the moment like any other rally ball. This is not mental toughness in the traditional sense. It is something closer to blissful ignorance of context, and on grass, where points end fast and momentum shifts can happen in the space of a single game, that quality is more dangerous than any tactical adjustment. My assessment is this. Eala will win the Birmingham title. She will win it because she has earned the right to close a grass court final, because her game is structurally aligned with what this surface rewards, and because the Mazarova semifinal proved she can absorb adversity on this court and still find her way to the finish line. She will win it in 3 sets, because Bartonkova does not lose quietly, because the Czech player will take at least 1 set through sheer aggression and unwillingness to be overawed, and because finals between 2 hungry 20-year-olds do not resolve themselves in straight sets when both players have something fundamental to prove. The first set will likely go to Eala on the strength of her return game. Bartonkova's first serve percentage will dip early under the pressure of a final, and Eala will punish second serves with the same inside-out positioning she has deployed all week. The second set will tighten. Bartonkova will find her serve, hold comfortably, and put pressure on Eala's service games by deploying her height advantage on returns. Somewhere around 4-4 or 5-5, the Czech player will find a break and take the set. And in the third, Eala will fall back on the one thing she has that Bartonkova does not: experience in this exact emotional territory. She has been here before. She lost here before. And